Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 165, and today we're going to be playing Sejuani Gangplank. And so, I will say before we get into the video, I do plan on spending a large portion of this video talking about the idea and concept of the upcoming rotation, and then my thoughts on the kind of AMA and blog post kind of stuff we've been getting from the lead dev here recently. And so will be a little bit different than the standard fare. I felt like this would be a good place to go back and kind of revisit things like Sejuani Gangplank if we're going to be spending a lot of the gameplay time just talking about not gameplay. And so I felt like this was good in that sense. And it's also good in terms of this being an older deck and something that's kind of interesting with the concept and idea of the rotation. And so, for this deck itself, for the most part, this is just a really not Bilgewater. Yeah, Bilgewater. There we go. Bilgewater heavy version of the Sejuani Gangplank. If you're not entirely certain what this deck is intending to do, both Gangplank and Sejuani have the same level up condition. You're trying to deal damage to the opposing Nexus. Ideally, we're going to deal damage on our turn with attacks, and we're going to deal damage on our opponent's turns with things like Warning Shot, Parlay, and Make It Rain. Then ideally, once our champions are big and bad and flipped at everything, we just win the game quite easily from that point forward. This deck does have some real and raw power in the current format, right? We're talking in large part these days about having access to overwhelms or rallies. Just if you're looking to punch through the Nora decks or the decks like Ezreal Kennen, you really have to have some overwhelm power coming out, and this deck has access to it in the champions. And so we aren't playing the full overwhelm stuff like you would see out of, say, Gwen Sejuani, but we do still have a big overwhelms package coming out of this one. The other kind of oddball cards in here are we are doubled up on the full tentacle package. We're playing the full 3 copies of Eye of Nagakoboros, the full 3 copies of Riptide Sermon, along with a single copy of Feel the Rush, because there's nothing better than just bringing in the big 10-10 bodies. Out of the new set, we do have access to Piltover and Castaway. Again, all these improvised cards are extremely powerful. This one fits right into high-powered land. If you can pick up Scout and attach it to your Overwhelm units, tends to be a pretty good day. And so pretty standard fare from the old days with some new sweet hits added in. And so, before we jump into the gameplay, you all know what we have to do, though. We have to pay the pay-to-win price, and we've got one in here. It's the old Yordle Grifter. We haven't leveled him up from our times of playing with the Powder Monkey decks, and so he's gonna get his premium treatment done today. Let me go ahead and get our record and our weight tracker up on the board. And all right, we're good to go. And so, yeah, in terms of the things we said first, the upcoming rotation, I am in the camp that this is a fantastic idea. Now, I understand where the difference comes in from, say, Runeterra as compared to, say, Magic or compared to Hearthstone or Eternal or whatever other games you are playing. And I know that there's a difference as well with, say, like Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is I never played Yu-Gi-Oh!, but my understanding is that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a non-rotating format. And the place where this starts to, realistically cause problems, at least from a design perspective, is that the idea of power creep, right? The thing I was looking at when I wanted to bring up an example is, let's say we want to make a 2-power Demacia unit and have it be relevant, right? There's 2 separate things being made in that statement. It wants to be 2-power, and it needs to be relevant. We have lots and lots and lots and lots of 2-power units coming out of Demacia. Which of them are better than Petricite Broadwing, right? None of them. Petricite Broadwing is far and away the strongest one. It's already been nerfed once. It got nerfed from 4 health down to 3. And then what do we want to do after that? If you're looking for a offensive card, you might look towards Bright Steel Protector, also nerfed. If you're looking for a defensive card, you might look towards Duran Sculptor. Literally every single other card is not playable. And so it's like, Demacia-based card that's a 2-drop are you going to print that's going to be relevant? It's exceptionally, exceptionally challenging to do. And that's where the rotational aspects of this can be extremely powerful and why I think they're necessary. If you want new cards to come out and go, oh, cool, here's a new card. I would like to play with that. And then you come out and you play 2 or 3 games and you go, oh, fuck, this card is just worse than Petricite Broadwing in every single way imaginable. Then you're just not going to play with them. You're going to be rolling back to playing with the same cards over and over again. And then as we've seen in a large part these days, we're still seeing a lot of these old decks being tough to overpower, right? Pirates has been a exceptionally powerful deck since the release of the Bilgewater cards. Nothing has changed. It's still the most powerful deck in the format. What, like 1 or 2 cards is Riot supposed to nerf that changes Pirates from being the best deck in the format? Even if you say attach a nerf to Misfortune, if you attach a nerf to Twisted Fate, those just aren't going to be enough to stop it. While, making Misfortune cost 4 mana or making her a 2/2 or whatever would certainly do some damage to the deck, would that be enough to make it not be the best aggro deck and arguably not the best deck in the format? Probably not. And so, you just have to do things like that to keep things fresh. I was trying to think to myself earlier today. I was like, how can we just turn this into a football reference, right? I got to take this and turn it into a football reference because football, I was trying to decide if it was a rotating format or not. If you're like 40 and 50 years old, you're not out here playing football, but there is, a nice variety of young players coming in and getting the format updated, if you will. And all I could come to think of was Tom Brady and Tom Brady ruining everything. But then I also felt like Tom Brady was the lightning bolt of of the card games, right? He's just been relevant since Alpha. Dude out here balling out for the past like 18, 20 years or however long he's been playing. I think he's in the multiple 20s now. I think he's at like 22, 23 years in the league. It's just like what card? He's the Ancestral Recall. He's the lightning bolt. But those are kind of like the standards, right? If you look at a format like Vintage and Magic, sure, it's a lot older, but what does it take for a card in Magic to have impact on the game? It takes quite a bit of work. And so if what new cards get printed and work in Vintage, there might be 1 in a set, there might be 2. The power scope is getting a bit higher than it used to be, but it is really tough to create a Magic card that is relevant in Vintage. And so I just can't imagine there being a lot of good value in terms of never making these cards strong. So I'm on board with the camp. The downside, I think, that where Runeterra separates itself from the other games is the focus on champions, right? If you look at Magic, they aren't rotating red out of the game, right? They aren't rotating white out of the game. Magic, you're rotating the various planeswalkers or whatever, and the various themes from the previous seasons, but like the big core identity doesn't get removed from the game. And that's the same idea with Hearthstone. You aren't rotating mage out of the game, you aren't rotating warrior out of the game. It's just a collection of cards that are supported by that hero. And when we look at something like Runeterra, it's not a game technically built on the regions, right? The regions are providing a deck building restriction, right? But the core of the game is the champions. And so you do have something a little bit different in terms of being able to cycle those away. But I think with that, Riot made a mistake in naming a card Ezreal or naming a card Karma, right? Why isn't this version of Karma the Enlightened Wizard, or Karma the Enlightened Shaman, whatever Karma is? And then if you want to rotate Karma out, it's not that big of a deal because then you can later on print Karma, I don't know, Goddess of the Barriers or whatever the fuck you want to call the new Karma, right? And so I think they can probably still change that and may end up changing that at some point, right? There has to be popular champions throughout the course of League of Legends. I just don't think they'll stick with this being the one Karma forever. That might be kind of the saving grace to it. I understand why people are worried about their favorite champion rotating out of the format, but I think it's got to be done in terms of making things relevant and keeping cards relevant. You just kind of have to do it, or how do you, how do you make another big Freylord unit, right? It's tough to outdo Sejuani, and so I think that you're just kind of stuck with it. It's not a world to where we can have a non-rotating format. Whew, all right, but into the combat here. I don't like this this tentacle smash that we just did. I thought that we were still going to have mana to play a Fury of the North, but if you're looking for some gameplay knowledge here, this is the small to big left to right attack. Ideally, we'll get a hit in somewhere here to the left, and then get the frostbites down the board. Opponent had a reasonably strong out here, so let's see if we can't get some upgrades going. We don't have the mana for the bar. That's kind of fucked up. All right, let's see where this next turn gets us. I'm not entirely certain how these Karma back alley bar decks win the game. I'm sure opponent will be more than willing to show us, but we'll see how this turns out. We should be able to get fully white again. I'm not certain how he's planning on stopping our board. The bummer for opponent is like this is his turn to pop off, and his Karma isn't enlightened, and so we basically what this game will come down to is we'll either win this game on the next attack, and then if we don't manage to overtake the opponent here, then we'll lose the game. Where are we going with this? Let's start with the Mirai Warden. My concern with the turn is that we play Sejuani and then she just gets bounced or she gets concussive palmed. I definitely want to have the full collection of units on the board this turn. It's got to be a matter of... I think we can't play her. Like, I don't care about her Frostbite ability. And if we play Sejuani and she just gets hit with a... Okay, we're safe now. I was going to say, if she just gets hit with the Will of Ionia, then she's not going to do anything. Alright, so we can play Sejuani. Frostbite vulnerable, sure. We can still drop the Fix'em 5000. And then next turn we'll play the gem and hit. Still have the mana for 2 Fury of the Norths. I think we'll be okay. What do you got for your 2 mana? I guess he can do something for a 3. Oh man, I was gonna say maybe he can drop in a little bit of heat here with the first card he's playing each turn costing 1 less.
I don't do meditation.
Luckily, we had the 0 cost unit in hand. But no, I think the other big concern with the idea of rotation, or at least what you see a lot of on Reddit, is the legacy format, the old format, not getting the attention that it deserves, right? That Riot's never going to say, well, we're not going to pay attention to this format because it's old and nobody gives a fuck. That's essentially what happened to Wild in Hearthstone. It's like no one cares about Wild. Blizzard does nothing to maintain the format. At least they didn't when I played. I played almost exclusively Wild, but there is always that concern. But you know, my kind of counterpoint to that thing would be, what if we do want to say, look at a game like Magic, which Standard was the core format in Magic for 20-25 years, but to the best of my knowledge now, the core and popular format is modern. And so it's not to say that these kind of legacy formats can't exist. It's not to say that Riot can't come up with something to where all of the champions are still in the format or whatever, but something has to be done. You can't be getting like 4 and 5 years into the game and then not having some kind of rotation come through. What's even happening with these? He's put double Sump Fumes onto our Black Market Merchant, and then he's recalling Sejuani. Okay. This Fury of the North gets us to lethal. We'll wait on him to play more cards before we do the other one. If he starts dropping like health potions or something this turn, we'll just go ahead and concede. We're not going to beat Karma after this turn. This is a must-win moment for us. All right, this is not challenging at all to see where these cards are going. Looks like our Mirai Warden is still alive. I would like to boost up something that's getting hit with Mystic Shots, though. If opponent's going to have Concussive Palm, I don't want to blow all of our cards onto the Mirai Warden and then have one of these others get Concussive Palm. Just prevents the entirety of the damage. There we go. Victory is ours. Mark it a W. You know we're good because we were paying a lot of attention to that gameplay there. But no, I can bring it up real quick in terms of what I meant with the Demacia cards, right? Just takes a moment. If we pull them up, go to cards, pull up the old filter, units, Demacia, 2-drops, right? We want to make a relevant 2-drop in Demacia. You can say, oh boy, maybe we just come in and boost something like Dragon Guard Lieutenant, or we boost Honored Lord. Like, these cards have literally never been constructed playable. Like, there's been a time in Sejuani decks to where the Lieutenant made plays. Honored Lord has never been relevant. Made Secret Persuader finds his way into some like Lux decks. And then War Chefs makes its way into some like fringe copies of Poppy Tarek. Right? There's just never any relevant format to where these cards are going to be better than Petricite Broadwing. And if you want to continue this on, Vanguard Defender and Vanguard Lookout both have never been relevant. Vanguard Lookout even got upgraded to carry the Elite tag, didn't help, and nobody wants to play him in formidable decks. And so, like, when you make comments like, well, we can just buff cards, we're playing a digital card game, what changes is Riot supposed to make to both A, make these shitty cards relevant, and then B, make the new cards relevant as well? Are they supposed to come in and just make Honored Lord a 4-3? Are they supposed to then be like, oh, let's make Broadwing a 0-2 so it's more shitty? No, it's like you have to go through cycles of these cards just not existing in the format so that you can give other cards the chance to shine. I really, really wish I could find the article. It came from the Magic camp back in like the late 90s or early 2000s. And they discovered that regardless of the size of the number of cards in the format, people will only ever play with a maximum of 30% of the cards. And so it doesn't matter if you have a 100-card format. It doesn't matter if you have a 1,000-card format or a 10,000-card format. No more than 30% of those cards are ever going to be used. You're never going to get to a space to where 100% of your cards are constructed relevant. I would be really surprised if you could get over that 30. Like, I haven't done any kind of analysis on Runeterra to look at the top decks to see what percentage of the cards are being played, but it's never going to be 100, and a card like Dragon Guard Lieutenant, Honored Lord, all of these other cards that we're mentioning are just going to be fringe playable, while Petricite Broadwing is a card, while Durand Sculptor is a card. And so you do this. You take this thought exercise. You say, I want to print a Demacia 2-drop that sees play more than Petricite Broadwing, and then you tell me how absurd that card is, right? It's just not possible to do. And so we just have to kind of like ride the wave of Petricite Broadwing being too powered for, a couple of years. And then it cycles out, and then we get the opportunity to play with new cards. It's just that's the way that it needs to be. And then there can be the legacy format, of course, to where anything goes, and the cards like that just never go away. Ooh, starting back up. Almost missed that play button. And so, yeah, I think the rotations are relevant. It's tough. I'm curious to see what Riot does with it. I think the next big thing in terms of having things like rotations is which format is Riot going to support. And that was one of the kind of valid comments that I saw across Reddit that no one else was really touching on. Is it doesn't matter. Well, I shouldn't start with it doesn't matter. That doesn't get to the point we're trying to make. It's the question is, seasonals is currently set up now based on whatever we're calling this format. We'll call it current. The core ladder rank is currently is based on this current format as well. And so when Riot looks to move to this style of structure, are they going to either have two separate ladders and have two separate seasonals and then two separate worlds. And if you want to participate in worlds, you have to pick a format, right? Because basically, whichever format Riot picks as being the one for seasonals and worlds and ladder is going to be the one that everybody plays. And yes, there will be some people kind of fringe playing the other format, but the one that's going to get all of the attention from the content creators is going to be the one that's on the focus of the ladder. And so when Riot says things like we're going to give both of the formats their due diligence and we're going to keep them both balanced, yes, that is arguably true. They may intend to maintain balance on both of the formats, but they're going to have to pick one, right? They're not going to have two world championships, and without seeing which way they're going to go, one of them is going to be the kind of chosen format, and then the other one's going to be the one that gets left behind. And I don't feel like there's really any way around that. Nothing is coming to mind to me in terms of how that could be avoided, unless you want to say like half of seasonals is this format, the next seasonals is the next format, or worlds is a two format kind of event. Like it's really tough to pull off this kind of thing. And I think it's likely just going to be standard. At the end of the day, that's what's going to be happening because Riot wants you to buy new cards, and that is the purpose of the rotations in the format. It's not just to limit the design space, but it's also to push you to buy new cards. And as it's one of those sayings, it is what it is, They have to make their money. If Riot's not getting enough money, they'll just quit making the game. And so I'm not upset about that fact. I get that it has to happen, but I also understand. I think that was one of the kind of better comments though was they do have to pick one, right? They say that there's not a choice. No successor has been chosen, but they must actually pick. So for our single strategic decision of this game, I went ahead and put the Pot of Pain onto our Gangplank. Assuming opponent is building up to a Riptide Sermon, I don't want our Gangplank to immediately fall to it. And so we are like super far away from ever flipping a Gangplank or a Sejuani. Opponent's going to be able to, right? They've had this warning shot parlay based start to where they got out in front of that. We're never flipping this Gangplank. But if we can get our opponent to say like block with a 3/3 and then take a bunch of damage and then have to Riptide Sermon after that, then we have something going on, right? We have something cool that could potentially get us a game-ending situation here. If his game plan is to now Riptide Sermon Gangplank, I feel really good about this game. We're getting decently far ahead, and I'm a little less scared. Lots of potential for this turn, though. If, say, he plays Sejuani and then we get to Riptide Sermon as Gangplank, that gets us in a decent spot. Well, probably need to take that back now that his Gangplank's flipped and all of his champions would be flipped. If that didn't happen, we would have been in a decent spot. Got the Sejuani. Not bad, not bad. But as we're looking at cards like this and talking about rotations, how does Riot print a mid-rangey Bilgewater card that's not better than Gangplank? It's tough to do. Like he's just a really strong bruisery kind of unit, and maybe it's possible. I don't know. This game's not though. I mean, we can try. We can parlay the powder keg. He's coming at us for 14. We can block for 6. All right, maybe we're not dead. The other thing, it's like, I don't know. I'll save this thought for the next. We'll wait till we get into the next game so I can have my full my full ideas and thoughts on that one, so we're not falling short here. So this is now 16 damage. We can block 6. Okay. Oh, I forgot the explosion hits face. Alright, GG.
I'll have my revenge, one way or t'other.
Okay, GG. All right, and so the next spot that kind of tied in with where I was going is it's tough to see, you know, kind of like the general feel of the community and these things. For the most part, you're just kind of like stuck going to Reddit. There's not a ton of Runeterra communities out there outside of getting into some kind of niche Discord environments. But for the most part, in the history of all gaming, the vast majority of the player base is casual. I think that's essentially also the same thing here, probably in large part why there was also a large push towards Path of Champions, in that that opened up the space for a heavy casual environment, and I could definitely see a lot of casuals being drawn to the format. And Riot saying, hey, I want to make some money off of these filthy casuals. Let's get them and keep them playing the Path of Champions. And so what that kind of like leans to with me and with this concept here is whenever you go and read the Reddit threads, you want to like think in your head that these people are just like you. And maybe you are. I assume person seeking out my content is not really in the sphere of casual. It's not outside of the realm, but for the most part, people that are seeking out YouTube videos of masters level people making bad gameplay decisions are at least in the more competent and better end of the competitive spectrum, and not so much in the casual end. But you don't get that in Reddit, and so it's tough to tell if like the volume of complaints is, indicative of how the community really feels, or if this is just a like small portion of the casual community that feels this way, or if it's a large portion. It's tough to really tell how any of these feelings pan out and shape out. But that kind of leads to the second point as to where they're not game designers. I'm not either. I do have a lot of experience in playing the games and seeing the things that happens and the positive and negative impact and outcome of what people do. But it's a lot of emotional response and a lot of people without much experience in either designing games or dealing with them for the most part. And so what that was kind of like pointing over to is we get, I don't say we'll get a lot of communication from the new game director. Like, I guess we've really gotten like 2 pieces of it. And I, as a player, I don't want to say I call it worrisome. Like, I don't like to be a real doom and gloom type person, but I find it a bit strange and a bit worrisome. And that kind of ties back into the casualness of things, to where if you look kind of like across the board at these people that are taking on the lead role and interacting with the community, it tends to be people that are in the casual end of the spectrum, right? You don't see too much in terms of highly competitive players being that like focal point of the community. Like, if you want to go through the games, you're going to have Mark Rosewater at Magic. You're going to have people like Ben Brode at Hearthstone. You do have people that kind of break the mold, right? There is Aaron Forsyth at Magic. He has a large role with the company, and then there's also I don't know whether or not I would describe Riot Mort as being competitive or not. He has been able to push into Challenger, which you don't see from a lot of the dev types, but it's tough to say. But it's when I start to see like the lead dev of the game, I would have probably pushed the Von Yips and the other guy. I don't remember his name, but I would have had them pegged as being in kind of like the casual end of the spectrum, as to where I would have also expected, the Ben Broads of the world and the Mark Rosewaters to be. And now that you have a highly competitive player moving into the design space, I'm kind of curious what that means and what that lands on. And if you want to go and look at his byline, is that the right word, where you describe yourself in a couple of words? Whenever he makes a post on the Runeterra site, it's making note that he was a professional Magic the Gathering player, right? It's one of those things that has to be a large part of your personality if you're willing to come out and be like, oh yeah, I was a professional Magic the Gathering player, right? That's not one of the things that you see. You could say anything. I love to drink coffee and play board games and sit on the beach at moonlight. You can put anything in those things, but you choose to say I was a Pro Tour competitor at a specific game. And so where I'm kind of like, the area of concern with that, where that comes from, is they pushed forth the messaging that the game was going to be moving in this more competitive direction, and you're going to have what is a very competitive player leading that direction. And does his ideas and thoughts and feelings, really resonate and mesh with the people and the concepts and the things that you're seeing on Reddit? Probably not. And so, I guess time will tell. The other flip side of of having that type of person around is you want to think that these like game developers are really getting into the big day-to-day nitty-gritty, right? You want to think that Mark Rosewater is like really getting into the depths and defining the art direction on each card and everything, and it's just not the case. These people, they're setting the big picture kind of things, and so maybe it's okay in those kind of terms that he's decided that competitive is going to be the bread and butter of Runeterra, and it's okay. That he doesn't handle the day-to-day of that. But I know that piece was kind of ranty. That does kind of like tie into where I wanted to go into the next step with that guy, though, is I don't have like a wonderful way of explaining it. It's one of those things as to where, like, say I got good at something by practicing and doing it a lot and doing it well, and then other people approach things in different ways. And it sounds like really weird and really cringy, this way to say it, but the only way that I could like realistically think of this concept and the way that I could come out and explain it is, say you were like, hey Bust, I want to go on a date with a girl, how do I do it? And then I might provide you the advice. You say, oh man, I got you. I know how to do this. Back in my day, I used to just go and talk to strangers. I used to go to places where people were doing activities that I would be interested in. And I tried to find, like-minded people. And then through trial and error, I kind of figured out how to interact with these people and communicate with them and have a good time. And that's one way of doing things, right or wrong. I don't care how you feel about it. But then, like the next thing I try to look at is there's always people like trying to put a mathematical equation to something, and this is by no means a reflection of Dave Guskin's character. I've never met the guy. I've never talked to him. My only interactions with him have been reading like his one blog post and his AMA on Reddit. But what it really feels like through his kind of like talking is that he has the ability to put a mathematical equation to anything, and he's able to sit down and like read through some research and do some math and count on his fingers and stuff, and then put together the ultimate equation that is going to result in high quality Runeterra. And so then at kind of like the end of the day of that, it just does. It feels like when something goes wrong, it's something wrong with the equation, right? I don't know. I'm kind of like slipping on that. The way that I had it in mind with the dating thing was like, you're like, okay, well, here's what you do. You send a girl a text message You wait 45 minutes, you send her an open-ended question, and then you wait another 45 minutes, you say LOL with a good GIF, and then you don't respond for 2 days. After 2 days, you ask her out to a nice breakfast meal, and then on breakfast, you have this like list of 4 topics, right? I know this is like really getting out there, but it's just that, you know, you have this kind of like step-by-step process like outlined in your head on how to do something, and it's just a completely and entirely different world from the way other people may kind of experience something. And I just kind of like look at his posts and the things that he writes and everything, and it seems to just completely be very mathematical, very process oriented, and it just strikes me as something as to where these decisions are being made based like purely on a mathematical sense or purely a numbers sense, and it's the way that a lot of his posts read. I don't want to say that it has like an air of arrogance to it. And again, I'm not trying to trash on this guy. I've never met him. I'm sure to get at this stage to where he's a lead designer for a multi-million-dollar game, the dude's credentials are top notch. I'm not trying to talk trash on this guy. It's just when you're used to seeing like the Mark Rosewaters of the world be the lead in the communicative front, and then you see these kind of like highly technical messages be the new messaging that comes out in the game. It's very, very jarring, and I don't want to be concerned by it, but I feel like at the end of the day, it leaves me a little bit concerned if something gets just even like a little bit off track in terms of his outline and plan for the game, then things just kind of fall apart. If you wait until text message number 4 to send the GIF, then you got a problem and things aren't working. All right, let's see if we can't close out this game. Hopefully it goes okay. Drop this Eye of Nagakaboros. Running this big aggro strategy into a double Neverglade Collector draw is not super ideal, but we'll keep on trying. It looks like he's getting low on health, right? Coming in for 6. So what do we got? We got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage in hand. Uh-oh, that's problematic. All right, we're probably not going to outrace these encroaching mists. We need the 1 more mana to take down the Neverglade. F. Whiffed. Okay, GG. And so where that the kind of like next space of that was going is I do worry about how he voices the messaging and how he puts it forth. Like I kind of gave it a pass on the replacement blog post, if you will, when he's the new person coming in. He wants to set and say what is important to him and give you some background on him. I think that that's all well and good, but then it just like it should have stopped there. It's like whenever I see something like the Ask Me Anything on Reddit pop up, you're always going to get people wanting to ask about the future, and they just aren't allowed to talk about it. You can't say, oh cool, here's the next champion in the next set, or here's exactly how we're going to work a rotation, or here's exactly what we're doing with the Path of Champions, because once you set those expectations, if you don't do it, you're just going to hear shit for the remainder of time. You're just going to keep hearing, hey man, when are you doing this sweet feature in Path of Champions? Or hey man, when are you going to do the rotation? Or hey man, you said you were going to, who was it, Darius? Or was it Katarina? You said you were going to rework Katarina and all you did was give her an extra point of attack. Like you have to deal with that shit for eternity. And so that's why you see companies like Valve just don't say fuck all. They say, here's your patch notes. End of story. They don't tell you why they did the patch notes. They don't tell you why a change was made. They don't give you any upfront information. They just do it. And so whenever it comes to like this dude trying to do an Ask Me Anything, you have to understand that A, he's not allowed to say anything, and B, like the best that you're going to get is asking questions like, how did you come about like designing this champion, right? What made you design Ezreal this way? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? That are like about things in the past. And then you can't just ask, oh, what are the cards that you're going to rotate? And then, it ends up poorly. And I saw in that in the Ask Me Anything thing, he did decide to respond to a handful of those questions, and you get kind of the pat responses of, we're trying our hardest and looking at data and stuff, and it's just, I don't want to say that he handled it poorly. I think the thing is, these companies have professionals that handle this kind of thing, right? Riot has a guy. If you read the patch notes, they have a lead of global messaging or something, and it's his job to understand how to speak to communities. And there are people that handle it well. I feel like Rosewater does it well. I feel like Riot Mort goes way above and beyond anyone should ever do. But I just don't feel like this guy's good at it. And whenever the face of the game is making the statements, it's a little unfortunate when the statements don't come across well. And I just don't think he's had any of his statements come across well. It cycles back to what I was trying to poorly allude to in our dating our dating analogy, in that it comes across as very mechanical and very academic, and I don't feel like it has a good delivery. I think would be a decent word off of the cuff. So, I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to trash on the guy. As you look at these people in these positions, like, Riot is, I assume Riot's $1 billion company at this point. If they're not, they're close. And to be the lead on one of their, what I would assume is a high 8-figure, if not 9-figure project, the dude is qualified. I don't mean to talk trash on this guy like he doesn't know what he's doing, or he's unqualified, or he's not good at his job or anything. I just think his communication is poor. Maybe that's where we should have just maybe that's where we should have just stopped the whole dialogue, right? The dude's communication is poor. End of story. But all right, are we going to win this game? Doesn't look like it. Not with this Nami coming down. Maybe he won't kill us this turn, right? What if we get to pull this off? Who's his weakest unit? His weakest unit's not Shelly. If he can pop off double spell, and then we'll just have a problem. But if we we just need one spell. If we get to kill Shelly, we have a shot. That's not good. Okay. Let's see if we can't get another blocker. Is the Shelly plus the droplet lethal? Well, he's coming in now. Oh, that's it? I guess he is out of mana. All right, so we're gonna flip Gangplank, right? That's happening. Now, I want to ensure that we still have powder kegs on the board next turn. So I don't want to completely fill out our board. So we have the choice of either Yordle Grifter or Mirai Warden. I'm just going to add in the Grifter, because we're never like punching through these units, right? This is all going to come down to Gangplank being able to deal damage. And so let's take a nab. Maybe we'll get something cool. We don't. We have a Freylord card on top. And then let's put the Rake on Gangplank. He's the only one that matters here. And so if opponent has a Homecoming or a Concussive Palm, then we're going to struggle, probably just lose. But Gangplank here, ready to strike hard.
I'll show 'em pain. Light 'em up.
Light him up, bro. Is it the Concussive Palm? Is it the Will of Ionia? What could it be? Okay. Man, we're not winning a lot of games today. It's like paying attention helps or something. I felt like if I was going to sit here and just like talk about stuff the whole time, nobody wants to just look at my face the whole way. And so we'll put some pretty images on the screen and stuff. Just punch through some of these games, maybe get a win. All right, we can do it against lurkers. Yeah, one of the things I had thought earlier. It's I promise I won't make this political, in that when you look at these like positions in the company and the big leads and everything, it's very similar to something like a president or a governor or whatnot. And the thing that they're actually supposed to be out there and doing is setting up your plan and your ideals and your future for the next 5 years, 10 years. They aren't sitting around dealing with day-to-day stuff. They're putting together the 2 year, the 5 year, the 10 year, the 20 year plan, and they aren't just sitting around saying, "Hey, this art on Shell Shocker needs more bubbles," and they aren't sitting around saying Attune is a shitty mechanic, and they aren't sitting around saying we need more plunder cards. Everyone loves Gangplank, right? That's not what these people are sitting around and doing, and so. It is kind of interesting to a degree in that having someone like Gaskin come in and talk about these things, it sounds like it should be vastly important. I'm just curious at what point they're able to deliver quality information, right? Just a lot of the stuff in reading through that AMA, it is stuff like all rotation is immediately coming up. Why? What's going to happen? Why? And that's just like too short-ended of a question for someone like him, I think. It's tough. I'm curious at what point like his impact starts to be felt, and like the things that he puts forth can come into fruition. Like when you get to be like, if PvP was so important to you, what did you do to make it feel that way and appear that way and be that way? And whether or not it's a change to the ladder or a change to this or a change to that. I'm curious what his big impact is, because I'm certain he just can't talk about it. That's that same thing again. If he wants to be like, if he wants to be like, oh yeah, we're making this change to the ladder, you just can't talk about it. Because then if he doesn't do it, or if they change it, or if they test it and it's shitty, you're just going to have those people forever be like, dude, but you said, dude. Whoa, that's the way they sound, right? Whenever I read those comments on Reddit, that's immediately how they sound. It's like, oh, that's what? But you said, bro. But you said. Welcome to the FTP Bus channel. I hope you're having a good time. All right, did we win one? Did we get win number 2 under our belts? He's doing something. He hasn't given up yet. There it is. There it is. Mark it a W for bust. And so, do we have anything else to talk about? We're getting up here to game 8, our final game. We talked about rotations. I'm all for it. If you disagree, you're dumb. Talked about how Riot will handle it. Who knows? I'm interested to see. Will they support both halves equally? No, they won't. That is a lie. So that is everything we covered with rotations. We talked about Dave Guskin. Sure, he's well qualified. Doesn't need to be making the communications for the company. Talked about dating, the ways to do it, the FTP Bust way and the Dave Guskin way. That is not the FTP Bust way. Oh, man. The FTP Bust way is just to get real drunk and really awkward, and hopefully someone won't be completely repulsed by it. Just kidding. That's not the way it entirely worked. Maybe in my youth. Took me a while to blossom into the creature I am today, and so... It's a strategy, not necessarily a good one. I can most certainly tell you as I worked the door at a bar. Timo. I worked the door at a bar in graduate school, so I spent 2 years. I was the guy that sits around, you show up, I check your ID, and then had essential capabilities as the bouncer, So if you got rowdy, I was the one that told you to leave. And then, oh shit, forgot to attack. Did some bar backing, and so we did a bit of cleaning up. If you threw up in the sink, I was the one that got to clean it up. If you pissed in the floor, I was the one that got to clean it up. And so, being that dude that just gets to sit there and watch drunk people interact with each other all the time, I can tell you that is certainly a strategy. Not necessarily a good one, but it's not to say that it has never been effective. But you know, everybody needs a little help coming into their own. That we can leave a story as the exit point with how those things worked. In that, I worked at the door. I had this old guy come in. Like I worked at it was a real divey kind of bar. And so it was the vast majority of the people were regulars. I would say like 75% of the people week in and week out were the same people I was used to interacting with every week. And then you would occasionally have different people come in. And so what are the different people we had come in? It was an older guy. We didn't get a lot of the geriatric crowd. This was mostly like the greater than equal to 25, less than or equal to 50 kind of age. And this guy was certainly in retirement age. Fuck, we missed his Kennen. And so I had a couple of regulars, both females, sitting in the corner. And the dude just like keeps bothering them and bothering them and bothering them. And so I go over there and I tell the ladies, I'm like, hey, I see this guy's interacting with you. If you don't want to interact with him anymore, just tell me and I'll tell him to leave or tell him to fuck off or whatever. And they're like, okay, bust. Appreciate it. And so as the night goes on, the dude gets drunker and drunker. One of the ladies eventually comes up to me and she says, bust. All right, we've had our fill. The creepy old dude, it's time for him to go. And so I say, all right, I'll take care of this. And so I go tell the dude, I'm like, dude, you need to leave these ladies alone. They've had their fill. They're not interested in whatever you're offering up. And he did not approve of what I had to say. He was getting a little bit upset about it. And so I was like, all right, dude, you're done. You're out. You got to go. And so with that, he says, man, look, he's like, I haven't been out in a long time. I'm just looking for a place to where you can go and touch the girls. And I was like, what the fuck? And he was like, yeah, you know, back in the day, you just go to the bar and then you could just touch any of the girls that you wanted to. I was like, no, that's not how it fucking works. What do you mean? I just want to touch the girls. I was like, I'm sorry, dude. You can't do that here. It's not 1957 anymore. You can't just come to the bar and touch the girls. And he's like, all right, well, can you direct me to a bar where I can touch the girls? And so I was like, all right, my dude, the strip clubs are down here. I'm sure they have a policy about you touching the girls. Maybe you can go and touch a girl there. I'm not dealing with this anymore. And he said, all right, he left. He did not give us a tip. He signed out his tab, left a 0-piece nugget for the tip. But shit, that was one of the things that always stuck with me, man. This is one of those things. Where can you go and touch the girls? Ugh. And so I can give you some dating tips like that. Your strategy should not be, where do I go to touch the girls? If that's your strategy, you're probably a creep, and it's probably not going to work out for you. But all right, did we lose this game? I got into story mode again and quit paying attention, and so I'm curious if we should have played Sejuani this turn so that we could have warning shot down the squad. I guess we can still kind of block here, but I was like, well, we're going to play Sejuani next turn and get a frostbite attack in and hook something. You know, we're going to make these really big value plays, and excuse me, I'm pretty sure that's just not what this game's going to come down to, and so probably should have just played Sejuani there. And then gotten the frostbite this turn and looked to attack with Gangplank next turn. But I have to imagine, with opponent only having one card in hand at this point, if we're able to get a Gangplank attack in, then we'll probably just win the game. I don't know about you, but I like winning the game. This warning shot fucks up his attack a little bit, right? His Ahri doesn't get to move. We can block Ahri, but then our Gangplank dies to Mark of the Storm. Well, our Gangplank's going to die to Mark of the Storm anyways, right?
I'll cut my name into you.
Okay. Ooh, man, I highly recommend working in the service industry at least some point in your life. If you want to see the dregs of humanity, you'll see them. You know. Oh, he's gonna lose his Ahri like this. No, she strikes, but then the cannon goes away. All right, this seems wrong. Feels like he should be just killing the Gangplank. But also some of the coolest and nicest people you'll ever come across. It was a worthwhile endeavor, I should say, working in the service industry. And you get discounts on Monday nights. All right, did we toss this one? Did we punt it? What's going on here? We're not dead. We're just going to draw Gangplank and win anyways? No? All right. Well, I'm going to go with he doesn't have that many cards in his hand. It's going to be tough for him to have a way to interact with Sejuani here. So we might be getting a decent attack in. And then if Sejuani gets to stand, we can try and do the warning shot next turn. So maybe this is okay. Was it played well? Absolutely not. But we talked about a lot. We covered a lot of ground today. All right. Well, does he have the mana to replay Ahri? He might be able to open kill us. Oh, he does. Shit. We can still draw a warning shot. All right. I believe in us. Let's do it, squad. So yeah, worthwhile chat today, right? Rotation's good. New game designer. Not trying to talk trash. If it comes off trashy, I didn't mean it that way. Some high-quality Runeterra action. And some good life lessons. Don't be a creep ass. So, you're welcome. You're welcome, viewers, because that's going to do it. We finished off our Game 6. Victory was not ours, but we did still manage a 25% win rate. And so, amongst all of those games, to come back to our analysis of Sejuani Gangplank, is this a good deck? Probably not. I think the idea of these days, and where the strength of the Overwhelm strategy lives, is in having a bunch of little ones, right? If you're going to say, what is my strategy to beat a Nora deck? You're going to say, I'm going to put 5 Overwhelms on the board, and I'm going to overwhelm across all of their shitty little units. The answer to that question is not, I'm going to put one gigantic Overwhelm on the board and let my opponent vengeance it. Or I'm not going to put one gigantic Overwhelm on the board and let my opponent concussive palm it. And so I think this deck here is the kind of space that you fall into when you have a good concept, right? Attacking with Overwhelms, but you execute it wrong. And I think that's what's happening. This, I think, wants to play against more mid-rangey style decks. You know, if we're looking through the list here of the things that are positive, you do see Lurkers on here. You do see the likes of Scouts and Trundle Caitlyn. These are all very mid-rangey decks to where you can probably realistically get a Sejuani flip and then have that flip be enough to win the game. I don't think that this is probably positive at the other ends of the spectrum against the likes of the Pirates of the world, the Gwen Sejuani or the Gwen Katarinas of the world, and then the aggressive or the controlling end of the spectrum, your Noras and your Ezreal Kennons and the like. And so, you know, if you like this thing, if you say bust rotation is stupid, I want to play with the Bilgewater cards from 2 years ago. I loved the lockdown. I never want it to go away. I'm playing Bilgewater Gangplank Sejuani forever. By all means, that's that's on you. But I think the majority of the world is ready and open for a rotation and a completely fresh format. But that is going to do it for us today. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. I hope you really enjoyed the knowledge bombs I dropped on you today. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way and had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.